Today we're going to do a pre-trip inspection on a tractor trailer. I'm going to enter the cab at 3-point contact, making sure that my tractor brakes and my trailer brakes are applied. I'm going to walk back here and make sure that my chock blocks are applied. I'm going to unlatch my hood latches. Unlatch this side. I'm going to start up at the top of my cab. I'm going to look at my lights on top of the cab, and they're orange in color. None of them appear to be cracked or broken, and there's no condensation. My windshield, it looks intact. There's no cracks on my windshield. There's no stickers. My windshield wiper, it seems to have sufficient blade on it, and the tension seems fine on my windshield wiper. Heater box is secure. It all seems to be in place. Up here on top, this hose here, all is secure. There's no cracks. There's no cuts, abrasions. Everything appears to be tight. The clamps all appear to be secure. I'm going back along the top of my engine. I don't see any oil leaks. On the top of the engine, everything seems to be secure, fastened good. There's no broken fasteners. I'm looking along by my turbo. I don't see any leaks from the turbo. And back towards the exhaust, there's no black soot, which would indicate a leak in the system. Looking along my engine, I don't see any leaks on my engine. I don't see any oil leaks, antifreeze leaks. Come along the side of my engine, I don't see any oil leaks from my engine, no antifreeze leaks. Everything appears to be tight and secure. All the hoses seem to be intact. I don't see any cuts, abrasions, or chafing of any hoses. I'm looking down here at my starter. I can see that my starter is securely mounted. I can see the wires going to my starter. They're all secure. They're not cut or frayed or not chafing against anything, and there's no signs of any arcing. Coming along the bottom of the block, I don't see any oil leaks, any antifreeze leaks. Everything looks like it's securely mounted. Moving along, I can see my alternator. My alternator, the wires are intact and securely mounted. My alternator is secure. All the bolts appear to be in place, and the tension on my belt is good. My air conditioning compressor is securely mounted. All the bolts and hardware seem to be in place, and the belt appears to be in good condition. Okay. Moving along out towards the fan, I don't see any broken blades on my fan, and it appears to be tight. My radiator hose appears to be secure. There's no evidence of any leaking. The clamps all appear to be tight. The hose looks to be in good condition. There's no chafing or rubbing or dry rot or cracked. Moving along to my radiator, it all appears to be tight. There's no signs of any leaking on my radiator. I'm checking my wires going up to my lights, electrical wires. They all seem to be secure. They're not rubbing or chafing against anything, and they're all securely fastened. Moving along past my radiator to the ear-to-air, all appears to be tight. My transmission cooler, my air conditioning condenser, and my hood hinges all appear to be intact. Moving along my frame, my shock from my hood is intact, and my bumper is tight. The bracket for the bumper is intact, and it doesn't appear to be any loose hardware. Coming along the outer edge of my frame, it doesn't appear to be any cracks in the frame. It looks good all back to here. I'm looking at my spring hangers, my springs. The springs seem to be all intact. There's no signs of any movement. There's no broken leaves. There's no misaligned leaves. The springs are securely attached to my front axle by the U-bolts. The U-bolts all appear to be tight. There is no sign of movement. The bump stop is in place. Moving up to my shock absorber is tight. It's not leaking, and it's securely mounted. The leaf spring, moving along to the front part of the leaf spring, it's securely mounted to the spring hanger. All hardware seems to be in place, and it's securely mounted to the frame. Following my air line that comes out onto my brake chamber, ABS line wire that goes to the wheel sensor is all intact. It goes into the brake chamber. The brake chamber is going to push on the push rod. I'm going to check I'm going to check the travel on my push rod using this tool. I should have no more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of play, and that seems to be good to me. Now I'm going to look at the inside of my tire, and it doesn't appear to be any bulges, cuts, abrasions on my tire. My tire looks like it's securely seated to my rim. My rim appears to be good. It's not bent or cracked or broken. There's no illegal welds in my rim. Coming across the tread of my tire, I see that I have sufficient tread on my tire. I have nice even wear. I'm going to come to the outside of my tire, and I'm going to check my tire for any cuts, abrasion, broken belts, bulges, cracks, and cracking, and it all appears to be good. I'm going to check my tire to make sure that's securely beaded against my rim, and it is. And I'm going to check around my rim for any cracks or breaks or any illegal welds, and it all appears to be good. My rim doesn't appear to have any cracks in between the spokes, and my nuts all appear to be tight. They all appear to be good. There's no evidence of any loose nuts, which would show trails of rust, like water get behind the nuts would show a trail from it. Appear to be tight. My hub in the center, it doesn't appear to have any leaks. And I'm going to pop the cap off, and I'm going to check the level, and it's sufficient. And now we'll go around to the other side and do basically the same thing we did on this side. One of the first things we're going to do is check our fluids like we did on the other side. Pull it out. And yes, our oil is at the maximum level. And we're going to check our power steering fluid. And it's between add and full. That's good. Our fuel water separator is down here. If our fuel filter was dirty, the fuel level would be up in the black. We're going to check our coolant level. It's between the minimum and maximum, and it's in the middle. That's where it wants to be. To start at the top, we're going to check our lights on top of our cab. They're amber in color. None of them are broke or cracked, and they don't appear to have any condensation. Checking our windshield is clean. There's no cracks in our windshield, and we have a valid inspection sticker. Moving down to our windshield wiper, our windshield wiper arm has sufficient tension, and the blade appears to be in good shape. Moving down along here, everything appears to be tight and secure. Looking here at my ear lines, electrical lines, everything is secure. Nothing appears to be rubbing or chafing, and is securely mounted. Our fuse box, everything is secure. It's all securely mounted and in place. Going across the top of my engine, I'm looking for any leaks. Don't appear to be any leaks. There don't look to be any broken or missing parts. Everything appears to be securely mounted. And then we're going to come out to the front of the engine. We're going to look at our hoses. Our hoses and clamps all appear to be tight, and there's no leaks. There's no leaks from our coolant reservoir. Our hose coming from that going down towards our water pump is secure, and there's no leaks. And the hose seems to be good. There's no cuts in the hose. There's no cracking, no dry rot, and it's all securely mounted. Down at our water pump, there doesn't appear to be any leaks from our water pump. The hose is from the water pump going to the radiator. Doesn't appear to have any leaks. The hose appears to be in good shape. There's no crack, dry rot, and this water pump is belt driven, and the belt has proper tension, and the belt appears to be in good condition. Looking in at our fan, all our blades on our fan appear to be intact. Everything is secure, and there's no movement of the fan. Moving out along to the radiator appears to be securely mounted. There's no signs of any leakage. The air-to-air system on the front of the rad is all securely mounted. And I'm going to reach out front here. I'm going to check for my hinges of my hood, and they all appear to be tight. The shock on my hood is secure. My wires going to my headlights are all securely mounted. They're not chafing or rubbing. My front bumper appears to be securely mounted. There's no missing hardware, and everything appears to be secure and solid. Now we're going to have a look at the air dryer. the air dryer, the hoses to the air dryer are not chafed, they're not cut, they're not broke. They all appear to be intact. Down by our air governor seems to be mounted and secured. Moving down to the air dryer, it appears to be securely mounted to the frame. The hoses going to the air dryer are all secure. Everything is tight and wrapped up with twist ties, and there's no cracking of the hoses, and the governor appears to be intact, and there's no movement, and it all appears to be tight. So moving back across the frame, I don't see any breaks in my frame. My frame all appears to be solid. I'm looking back in here at my cab mounts. My cab mounts are securely mounted to my frame. Coming back out to my shock absorber, that's secure, it's not leaking. The mounts are good, it's all bolted to the frame secure. Coming down my steering system. My steering system, there's no excessive play. The U-joint in my steering system is lubricated, and there's no movement in the universal joint. The steering box itself is securely mounted to the frame with all the bolts, and it all appears to be tight. There doesn't appear to be any leaking on the hoses coming from my power steering reservoir to my power steering box, or from my box back to my power steering pump. Steering box is securely mounted to the frame. All hardware is in place. There's no signs of any movement. Coming down the steering box with a pitman arm attached to the steering box, we can see that there is no sign of any movement, and all bolts appear to be tight. Coming down along the pitman arm, where it attaches to the drag link, we can see our castle nut is in place, and it's held on with a cotter pin. We're going to rock our steering shaft back and forth, and we're going to check for any movement in the pitman arm, and where the pitman arm connects to the drag link. Checking the suspension, we're going to check on our springs. Our leaf springs are not bent or broken or cracked. They're not misaligned. They're mounted securely to the front spring hanger, which is mounted securely to the frame. Coming back, we can see the U-bolts have it attached to our front axle. Our front axle isn't bent or broken or cracked, and all the U-bolts appear to be tight. Moving back along the back part of the spring, there's no leads that are broke or cracked or misaligned. Back to our back spring hanger, and it's all securely mounted to the frame. Checking our shock absorber, we can see that it's tight, it's securely mounted. It's securely mounted to the frame on the top and on the bottom, and it's not leaking any hydraulic fluid. Looking towards the back of our engine, our air compressor is located way back here. It's hard to see, but it appears to be intact. The lines going to the air compressor seem to be all connected. So I'm going to follow my air line out from my frame. It attaches to my brake chamber. My ABS wires are all in place. They're not chafing or rubbing. My air chamber seems securely mounted. All the hardware is in place. I'm going to take my tool. I'm going to check the adjustment on my brakes. It should be no more than 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of travel on my push rod, and it's sufficient. Checking inside the tire. The inside of the tire looks good. I don't see any cuts or abrasions or bulges or broken belts. The tire seems like it's mounted securely to the bead of the rim. There is no cracks in my rim. There's no illegal welds. My inspection cover is in place, and all hardware is mounted securely. Working my way across the tread, I have sufficient tread. There doesn't appear to be any nails or screws in my tires. Even wear. Coming to the outside of the tire, as I go around the outside, there's no broken belts. There's no exposed cords or wires. And my inflation of the tire is good. Checking my tire to make sure that it's beaded securely to my rim, and it is. There's no cracks in my rim. There's no illegal welds. There's no signs of any cracking. The nuts all appear to be tight and secure. There's no signs of any rust trails, which would indicate a loose nut, and my washers would be spinning if the nut was loose. Checking my center hub. There's no evidence of any oil leaking, and I'm going to check the oil on my hub, and we have oil in the hub. I'm going to also check to make sure that I have a valve stem and a steel valve cap. Now we're going to close the hood and we're going to secure it with the latches. Now we're going to check down the left side of the vehicle. Our mirror on the fender is secure. If the glass is nice and clean, there's no broken glass in our mirror. Our hood is nice. Our light is secure. It's orange in color. There's no condensation in the light. It's securely mounted. There's no fresh body damage to the side of the vehicle. Looking up top, there's no fresh body damage at the top. My mirror is securely mounted, and my glass is all in place and it's clean. My side window, there's no broken glass. It's all in place. There's no illegal stickers. Moving along to my door, I'm going to check the operation of my door. I'm going to check the hinges, and they all appear to be tight. The seal of my door is all intact on the door and also on the cab. It's all intact. The door's good, and it operates. That closes fine. We're going to continue down. We're going to remove our battery box cover. We're going to do an inspection on our batteries. We're going to make sure that all the cables are tight, and they all appear to be tight. There's no signs of any corrosion. There's no signs of any arcing, and the batteries are securely mounted into the battery box. So we're going to check our steps. The steps are securely mounted. All the bolts are in place. Our air tanks are here. We can see that our air tanks are secure, and we're going to check. They all appear to be good. Moving along here to our diesel exhaust fluid tank. The tank also appears to be mounted securely. There's no signs of any leaks from the tank. And the cap is tight. Coming down the side of the truck, I don't see any fresh body damage. Everything looks good there. I'm going to open the side compartment. Open up the side compartment. I can see that I have my 3 reflective triangles. I have my first aid kit, my fire extinguisher, which was by my door, and it was in the green, indicating that it was fully charged. And I have some spare windshield washer fluid. Coming down to my fuel tank. My fuel tank appears to be securely mounted with the straps. My straps have the rubber. There's no metal and metal contact. I'm going to check the contents of my fuel tank. I'm going to use this stick to check it. You don't know, maybe we have no fuel gauge. Let the level shows here. I'm going to compare that to the side of the tank. That would tell me that our fuel is approximately 3/4 full. Now that we got to here, we're going to go underneath the vehicle. There's some things we have to check under there. It's a little easier access to the other side, so we'll go on the other side and we'll go underneath. Looking up underneath my truck, I'm looking up on my transmission. I don't see any fluid leaks around my transmission. I can see my air tanks off to the side. They look like they're securely mounted. There's no hoses or rubbing or chafing, cracked or frayed. All of my drive shaft back along. It doesn't look like it's bent. It's all securely attached. Looking up at my universal joints. Looking up on my universal joint, it appears to be tight. There's no sign of any movement. It appears to be lubricated. All bolts are in place. My exhaust running back. I don't see any breaks in the clamps. I don't see any soot, which would indicate a leak in my exhaust system. My fuel tanks on both sides, I can see there's no leaks. The fuel tanks are in good condition. There's no damage to the tank, and there's nothing leaking from the tank. Looking at this air tank here, it all appears to be secure. The lines going to the air tank are all securely mounted, all in place up against the frame. I'm going to check my air tank for any moisture. The lines to my tank are all connected. My electrical lines and my air lines are all tucked up out of place and not hanging down to the bottom or anything. Following back along our drive shaft to the rear U-joint, we can see that that is lubricated. There's no missing or loose hardware, and there's no evidence of the joint being loose. Into our differential, we can see there's no leaks under the differential, and all the bolts appear to be tight. The lines going to our brake chambers all appear to be tight and secure. They're all held together with looms. Coming into the brake chamber is securely mounted. Our brake chamber is securely mounted. All the bolts are in place. The lines coming to the brake chamber, they're not chafing, rubbing up against anything. They're not broken, cracked, or frayed. The brakes are properly adjusted. They're within the limits in between these two tabs. Our slack adjuster is securely mounted. We can look up here. We can see our U-bolts. Our U-bolts have our spring mounted securely to the axle, and there's no signs of any movement. And we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. We're going to check our U-bolts, our springs, and we're going to check for our brake adjustment and make sure that everything is tight and secure. We're checking the hose on our axle vent, make sure it's free of obstructions, and it's good. Looking inside our tire, we don't see any cuts, any bulges, any abrasions. Our tire's mounted securely to our rib. We can see inside our inspection cover, we can see our drum back there. Appears to be in good shape. It's not a broken drum, and there's no cracks in our rim. And we're going to continue, we'll do the same thing on the other side. Checking our cross members coming back between the two frame rails, we can see that they're all securely attached, and there's no cracks in the cross members. Checking up behind the cab, we're looking for any fresh body damage. Our handrails are all in place. Our air lines and electrical cord are suspended. It's not dragging on the catwalk. The catwalk all appears to be securely mounted. Our steps are secure to the frame. Our shocks to our bunk, they're all secure, not leaking. Then our airbags are inflated for our bunk. Our fuel tank is good on the back. We don't see any dents. We don't see any signs of damage, and there's no leaking. The air tank is securely mounted to the frame, and there's no damage to our air tank. And we're going to check our air tank for any sludge or any water in the air tank. On here, we're going to check the cross members. The cross members don't appear to be cracked or broken. They're securely attached. Our mud flap is secure. It's not bent or broken. Our spring hanger is all securely mounted to the frame, and our spring is in the spring hanger. It's all in place. There's no leaves that are misaligned or broken or bent. Our air lines are all up at a place. They're not laying on the catwalk. Coming back to the trailer, they're all secure. Our electrical cord is locked in place, and the glad hands are securely mounted to the trailer. Starting from the top, working our way down, our reefer unit is all secure to our trailer. It's not falling off. It's all good. We're going to come down here to our permit holder. We're going to open our permit holder for our trailer. We're going to take our paperwork out. We're going to check our paperwork. There's a few different things we want to check for. We want to make sure that our permit matches, it's valid. We want to make sure it's the proper plate number that matches our trailer. We want to make sure that it's for this vehicle, and it's good for that. Our insurance card, we make sure it's the proper insurance card for this vehicle and that it's valid. Inspection certificate, we're going to make sure that the number on this matches the number on our sticker and that it's valid and it's not expired. There's all back in the attached folder. We're going to put it back in our holder. Starting at the top of my trailer, I'm going to work my way down. I'm going to look at my lights. They're orange in color, they're amber in color, and they're not broken or not full of condensation. There's no fresh body damage for the first half of my trailer. Coming down the trailer, we're going to go underneath, checking our apron plate of our trailer, make sure it's sound and solid and it's not bent or broken. We can see our apron plate meets our fifth wheel plate. There's no daylight showing through. Our release handle is all the way in. The security of our fifth wheel, we have a pin in here It's all secure to the riser. The riser is secure to the sliding place. We have the fifth wheel slide locks. They are in place to the table, and the table is securely mounted to the frame. In here, I can see my shock absorber is securely mounted and it's not leaking. My airbag, it's not cracked or cut. It's holding air. It's securely mounted to the frame. There's no broken or cracked parts. My spring hanger is securely mounted to the frame, and my spring is in place, and all hardware is good on that. I can see my drive shaft, which they call a jack shaft, between my two differentials. It's in place. It's not hanging on the ground. Looking in between my duals, I don't see any obstruction in between my wheels, and the rims aren't cracked or broken. I have sufficient tread on my tires, on all four tires. Coming to the outside of the tire, I'm going to check the outside of my tire, and I don't see any cuts, any bulges, any broken belts. There's no wires protruding. There's no curb rash or people have been rubbing up against curbs. It's mounted up against the rim, the bead. It all looks even all the way around. My rim looks good. There's no cracks in my rim. There's no illegal welds. There's no signs of any cracking, all between the spokes. Everything looks good here. My nuts all appear to be tight. There's no signs of any loose nuts. There is trails of rust, anything like that, or loose washers, which would indicate a loose wheel. My hub, all my nuts appear to be tight on my hub. There's no leaking from my hub, and I have a valve stem and a steel valve cap. And across from it, over here, we have another valve stem and a steel valve cap. Moving over to the back wheel, coming across our tread to the outside of the tire, and we have no cracks, no bulges, no curb rash, no broken belts. Tire appears to be in good condition. It's mounted securely to the bead of the rim. It all looks even all the way around. Our rim has no cracks, no illegal welds. There's no breaks in the rim. There's no cracks in my rim anywhere. My nuts all appear to be tight. The nuts all appear to be tight. There's no loose washers. There's no rust trails which would indicate a loose nut. Our hub, all our bolts on our hub all appear to be tight, and there's no leaking from the hub. We got a valve stem and a steel valve cap, and on the opposite side we have the same thing. And I'm going to give my tires a little kick with my foot. Check the inflation. One tire could be flat. This one could be supported. We'd have no way of knowing. If we had an air gauge, we would check them. It'd be 90 to 100 psi pressure. Now that we're underneath the tractor at the back, we're looking to see that our jaws are wrapped around our kingpin. We don't see any daylight between our apron plate and our fifth wheel. We're looking up and along by the frame. We're looking at our cross members, make sure that they're attached. They're not bent or broken. All bolts are in place. We have air lines, electrical lines. They're all attached to the frame, and they're all mounted securely. Torque rod running across is secure, from the frame to the rear differential. We can see that our cross members are attached to our frame rails. They're not bent or broken. There's no missing hardware. Everything appears to be in place. We have electrical lines, air lines running down the side of our frame. They're all in place. They're not rubbing or chafing. We have another look at our jack shaft. In between our two differentials, we can see the universal joint is lubricated, and it doesn't appear to be loose. And we get an axle vent. We get an axle vent on this axle, same as on our other axle, a rubber hose, and it's free of any debris. Looking underneath, I can see that our air lines coming to our brake chamber are all securely mounted. They're not rubbing together, not frayed or cracked. Our brake chamber securely mounted with the hardware is all in place. Our cheaters, which tell our brake adjustment, is in between the two pins. That tells me that my brakes are in adjustment. My spring is not broke, it's not cracked, it's not misaligned. The U-bolts have it securely mounted to my axle, and all nuts appear to be tight. Looking inside of my tire, I can see I got no cracks, bulges, wires hanging out of my tire. I can see my brake drum, my inspection cover, I can see my rim around. There's no cracks in my rim, and the tire is mounted securely to the rim. Coming under here, we're checking our mud flaps are all securely mounted. Our DOT tape is on our reflective stripes are on our mud flaps. We got reflectors. Tail lights are all in good shape. They're not cracked. They're not full of condensation. And our airbags are inflated, and there's no signs of any cracks or leaking from the airbags. Spinning around to the landing gear, I can check it from this side underneath. I can see that it's all secure. All the hardware is in place. It's all securely mounted. My dolly leg pads are in place, and the bracing is all secure. And I'm checking under my trailer, and my cross members of my trailer are all solid and sound, and the floor is sound. We're going to check our landing gear. We're going to check our legs. We're going to make sure that our legs go up and down. Oh, that's high gear. Here's high gear. And they move in low gear. There we go. Like that. So looking up under our trailer, working our way to the back, we're going to check our cross members. They're all sound on our trailer. They're not bent. Our floor all seems solid. Up in here we have our air lines, our electrical lines running back. They're all tucked up by the place. We're going to go along here. We're going to check each cross member, and they're all tight and secure. None of them are bent or broken. We have a marker light up top on our trailer. We can see that. It's amber in color. It's not broken. It's not full of condensation. Same as this light here. It's amber in color, not full of condensation or broken. Working our way back to the back of the trailer. We don't appear to have any fresh body damage. And we're going to duck underneath. We got some things to check under here. Checking our air lines and our electrical lines. Back from our trailer. They're suspended by springs here. They're not dragging on the ground. Coming on back here. Everything looks like it's securely mounted. Nothing's cut, nothing's rubbing together. No fraying, no cracking. Coming back in here, looking on our cross members once again. They're all solid and secure, and our floor of our trailer is solid. Starting at the back axle on the trailer, I'm going to start from this side over here in the tire, and I'm going to check my tire. I'm going to check the outside of my tire. I don't see any cracks. I don't see any bulges. I don't see any broken belts, wires protruding. If you notice on this trailer tire, I don't have any inspection cover. So I got a good clear look at my brake drum, my brake linings, my shoes. Tire is mounted good to the bead of the rim. Air lines are not hanging. They're not rubbing against my axle. They're all tucked up by the place nice. They're not rubbing together. They're going into the brake chamber. Brake chamber securely mounted into the push rod. The push rod comes out to my slack adjuster. It's all on my clevis pin and cotter pin, and that's all in place. Along my frame, my beaver tail, that's all securely mounted. The nuts in place. There's no signs of any movement. Down to my axle, it's well and onto my axle. There's no signs of any breaks there. My airbag's inflated. There's no signs of any cracks in my airbag, and they're not rubbing up against nothing, and it's holding air. Shock absorber is tight, and it's not leaking. Securely mounted. My air tank is securely mounted. It's not damaged in any way. Coming across these air lines here, going to this brake chamber, are secure. They're not touching each other or rubbing. ABS wire is in place. It's not dragging or rubbing against anything, causing any damage. My shock on this side is secure. It's not leaking, and it's securely mounted. Airbag, my airbag is inflated. It's not cracked. It's not damaged, and it appears to be secure. Brake chamber is securely mounted down to the push rod, down to the clevis pin, the cotter pin, into my slack adjuster. Same on this side. I don't have any inspection plate. I can see my brake drum. I can see my linings and my shoe, and I got sufficient lining here. My rim, I don't see any breaks in my rim, no cracks,
no cracking. My tires seated nice and evenly along my rim, and my tire, I don't see any cracks, bulges, or broken belts. Getting out from underneath the trailer, we're going to make sure that our bogey pins are in place. We have one here, and we have a rear bogey pin back here. And they're protruding out, and they're locked in place. Looking at the inside of the duals, on the inside of the tires, I don't see any cracks, I don't see any bulges, broken belts or wires, and the rims don't appear to be broken. We have sufficient tread on all 4 tires. There don't appear to be any nails in the tires, nails, screws, like that. Way around our tire, check the outside of our tire. It doesn't have any cracks, bulges, broken belts, wires protruding from the tire. It's seated nicely along the rim, nice and even. Around our rim, we don't see any cracks in our rim. There's no illegal welds. All our wheel nuts appear to be tight. There's no signs of any looseness. Any trails of rust would indicate a loose nut. And our hub wall is good, as we can see through the glass. And we're going to finish off with a valve stem and a steel valve cap. And up here also we have a valve stem and a steel valve cap. Coming out across the wheel, we have sufficient tread. Onto the outside of the tire, we're checking for any broken belts, any curb rash, any wires hanging out, bulges, cuts. We can see that our tire is seated nicely along our rim. It's nice and even all the way around. Our bead of our rim, there's no cracks in our rim. All the way around, there's no illegal welds in our rim. We don't see any cracking in our rim. All the wheel nuts appear to be tight. There's no signs of any movement. There's no trails of rust. There's no spinning washers. Our hub, we don't feel any leaking in the hub, and we can see that the oil level is right at the full mark. We're going to check, make sure we have a valve stem, a steel valve cap, and we're going to check the inflation of the tires. So coming around to the back axle, we can go underneath. We're going to check our mud flaps. We're going to make sure that they're securely mounted. All the hardware is in place. Everything is mounted good. The inside of our tire, we don't see any cracks, any bulges, any broken bolts. Once again, we have no inspection plates. Covers back here, so we can see our brake drum. We can see our brake drum's not cracked. We can see our brake shoe. We can see the brake lining, and we got sufficient shoe and lining. Looking up at our airbags, we can see that they're inflated. They're not cut. They're not leaking, and they're securely mounted. Looking under here at our brake chamber, we can see that our brake chamber is securely mounted. All bolts are in place. Push rod goes back to our clevis pin, to our cotter pin, up to the slack adjuster. Everything seems secure. Going across our axle, we have an ear line here that's attached there so it doesn't rub. Looking up here at our leveling valve for our suspension, that's all secure. And our air tank is secure. Coming along here, the same as the other side, we're going to check our air lines are suspended. They're not touching anything. Our shock absorber is tight. It's not leaking any fluids, and it's all securely mounted. Anything here with our brake chamber, coming to our push rod, coming to our clevis pin. It's held on with the little cotter pin onto our slack adjuster, and everything is secure and tight. Looking inside on this side, we can see our brake drum. We can see our brake shoe. We can see the lining on the shoe. We can see the inside of our rims all free of damage. Our tire is mounted good up against the rim, and there's no cuts or bulges or abrasions on the inside of our tire. Looking up here, we can see our cross members at the rear of our trailer. They're all secure. Air lines are tucked up out of place. Air lines, electrical lines, all running back. Good. Our DOT bumper is secure. It's all welded secure to the frame of the trailer, and it's here it goes. But out from underneath the trailer, we can see that our DOT tape is all on the side of our trailer. It's all in place. Our ABS light is secure, mounted, and our trailer marker light is red in color, and it's secure, and there's no condensation inside. Moving to the back of the trailer, we're going to stand back. We're going to have a little look at our trailer marker lights. They're red in color. They're in place. They're not broken. There's no condensation in them. We can see up on top, we got our little L-shaped reflectors on top of our trailer. Our tail lights are all in place. They're not broken or cracked. Red in color. There, we've got our DOT tape along here, across our trailer, and across our bumper. We can also see our license plate is properly attached. It's valid, and it's the same plate number that was on our permit. I'm going to look at the hinges of my door. They're not broken. They're all solid. They're attached to the trailer, attached to the door on both sides. I'm going to open the door. I'm going to look at my cargo. I'm going to open the door very slowly, carefully. I don't know what's on here. Something could fall on top of me. Oh, there's our load up in here. Looking at our load, we got our load bar across, stopping our pallets from movement. It's all good. We'll close our door once more. Looking up to make sure the latch is at the top as well as on the bottom, and it's secure. Coming down this side of the trailer now, we're going to check our trailer marker light. We can see that it's red in color, it's not broken or cracked, and there's no condensation. Our DOT tape is all down the side of our trailer. It's all in good shape. We have no damage on this side of our trailer. Our mud flap on this side is securely mounted. Everything. We're going to stick our head in between the duals once more. We're going to look for any obstructions in between the wheels, which there isn't. There don't appear to be any broken rims. Everything looks good in here. So we look at the tread on all four tires, and we have sufficient tread on all four tires. There doesn't appear to be any nails, any screws, any bolts sticking out of the tires. I'm happy with all that. Come around to the outside of the tire once again. We're going to check for any bulges, any cracks, any broken belts, any curb rash on the tire. Check, make sure that our tire is securely mounted up against the bead of our rim, and it is. There's no breaks in our rim. There's no cracks. No cracks in our rim all the way around. All inside here, all looks good and all intact. All our wheel nuts appear to be tight. All tight. There's no signs of any looseness, trails of rust, or shiny metal, where the aluminum would be shiny if a nut was loose. We don't see any of that. And we can see that our oil level is full. And we're going to check for our valve stem and our metal valve cap. We have one there, and we have one opposite. Moving up to the next set of wheels. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go around the outside. We're going to check for broken belts. We're going to check for bulges, wires sticking out of the tires, any curb where they rubbed up against curb and scrubbed the tire all up. And we can look around here. We can see that it's all mounted nicely up against the rim, the bead of the rim. We're going to check the bead of the rim. There's no cracks in the bead of our rim. All the way our rim, we don't see any cracks, no illegal welds. We get no cracking in our rim, all inside here. All our wheel nuts appear to be tight. No sign of any looseness. No spinning washers, rust trails. Our hub's not leaking. And we got sufficient oil in the hub. And we have a valve stem with a steel valve cap here, and a valve stem with a steel valve cap over here. And on this side, same as the other side, we're going to check our bogie locks. We got one in place here, protruding out. This side is locked, and our other one's up here. And that's locked and locked. Coming up the side of the trailer, we're checking for fresh body damage. We're checking our marker light. It's orange in color. It's not cracked, broke. There's no condensation inside. Along, DOT tape is all in place. There's no fresh body damage. All our cross members look good underneath our trailer. There's none of them are bent or cracked. Our trailer floor appears to be sound. The outside bracing of our dolly landing gear is all good. Our dolly leg's good. Our dolly pad, and all bolts are in place and present. Coming up here, we already got that mud flap. We check it again, it's all secure. Around this tire here, We don't see any broken belts. We don't see any cuts, bulges, any where it's rubbing up against curb. It's all seated securely to the rim. There's no breaks in our rim, no cracks. We're around. All our nuts appear to be tight. There's no leaking from the hub. We got our valve stem and our steel valve cap. And over here we got a valve stem and a steel valve cap. Looking in between the tires, looking in between the duals, I don't see any obstructions there that would go up against the tire. I see the rims are not broken or cracked. They're all in place, all managed like they should be. I'm looking at the tread of all 4 tires. I have sufficient tread on all my tires. I don't see any nails sticking out of my tires, no bolts, no screws. Coming outside, check around this tire. I'm going to check for bulges. I'm going to check for broken belts. I'm going to check for rubbing against the curb, any wires hanging out of the tire, cracks. I'm going to check around my tire. I'm going to make sure that's nice and even. Beat it up against my rim. My rim is all solid. There's no cracks. There's no cracking on my rim anywhere. It's all solid and secure. All my nuts appear to be tight. The wheel. All the nuts on my hub appear to be tight. There's no leaking from the hub. And a valve stem, steel valve cap, valve stem, steel valve cap, and the inflation is good. We got a light on top of our trailer. It's amber in color. It's not broken or cracked. There's no condensation. We have no fresh body damage down here. The side of our trailer, the side of our reefer unit, will be all secure. The back of the bunk on this side, there's no body damage. Our shock is in place. It's not leaking. We have an airbag here for our bunk. It's inflated. It's not cracked. Our fuel tank appears to be in good condition. So I'm going to dip that tank. See what fuel we got on this side. And we got it right about there. I'll put that over here. We figure we got about 3/4 of a tank of fuel on this side also. There's no damage to the tank. There's nothing leaking on the ground. Our straps are all intact on our tank. The rubbers are all in place. Happy with that. Yeah, looking down the side of our truck, we don't see any fresh body damage. Our light's securely mounted. Our glass is in place on our window. Our bed window, the glass is in place. Our mirror is secure. All of our glass in our mirror, and our West Coast mirror, and our convex mirror is in place. The door is free of damage. We'll check our door. We're going to check the security of our door. Up and down. Hinges all appear to be tight. The inside of the door, it's all seen to be sound. Our seal around the gasket around our door is all in place, as well as the cab. All in place. The door closes, opens good. Working our way down in here, down the exhaust. Everything appears to be tight. Our steps are tight. There's nothing damaged. All bolts are in place. Everything's present, and they're secure. And our marker light is in place. It's not cracked. It's not damaged. It's amber in color, and there's no condensation. Now we're pretty well right back where we started again. We're going to go up to the front of the vehicle, and we're going to have a little look. We don't see any damage to the top. No fresh body damage. Everything looks good up there. Our windshield is all around the rubbers. Our mirrors are in place. Our grille is all in place. It's not cracked or broke. Our headlights are there. They're not cracked or broke or damaged. There, our grille is in place. Our license plate, we're going to mark that down. We're going to make sure that matches our permit inside, and it's valid. And you have no leaks underneath the vehicle. We entered the cab. We're going to make sure that our seat is adjusted properly. Right? We can reach our pedals properly. We're going to check our seat belt. Check for any frays in our seat belt. We're going to make sure that it locks and locks. We're going to check our mirror adjustment. And we can see down both mirrors. And they're adjusted properly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to depress the clutch. We're going to turn on our ignition key, our warning lights. Continue to crank the engine. The first gauge that we're going to check is our oil pressure gauge. Make sure that we have oil pressure to our engine. Now what we're going to do is we're going to release our clutch, and we're going to check the free play on our clutch. We have free play on the clutch. We're going to check our brake pedal, make sure that it's mounted secure. We're going to check our fuel pedal, make sure that it's secure and it works. Turn on our headlights. We're going to check other gauges. We check our water temperature, which is cold. We just started our engine. Check our fuel gauge, 3/4. That matched up to what we did with our stick outside. Our air pressure still building in here. Check our tachometer. We can't check our speedometer yet because we're not moving. We're going to continue to go along. We're going to check some other gauges. Here's for dimming our instrument lights and brightening it. Our 4-way flashers, that works. Our mirror heater, our engine brake, regen, engine shutdown button, traction control. They're all where we want them to be. Dome light switch. It's for our backup lamps. It's just a spare switch. It's a spare switch. We're going to check our heater controls. We're going to make sure that our defrost works. One of the most important things is our defrost. We're going to try defrost. We're going to try it on all the different speeds. It works on all different speeds. We're going to try the heat on coming out the dash, out the vents. Works out the vents. We're going to try it on the floor. And it comes out the floor. We're going to check our steering wheel. There's no excessive play. We're going to make sure that's securely mounted. We're going to check that the adjustment is good and our steering wheel is tight. We're going to check our horns. We're going to try our city horn. We're going to try our wipers. We're going to try our wipers. We're going to try them on low speed. We're going to try them on high speed. And we're going to try the washers. And we have washers. Up here we're going to check our paperwork. We're going to check our paperwork. We're going to make sure that our inspection certificate matches our inspection sticker. We're going to check our permit to make sure that it's valid. Our plate is valid. It's for the proper vehicle. It has the right plate number that matches the front of our tractor, and it's the right permit for this unit. And the weight. We're also going to check the registered weight. We're going to check the registered weight, and that tells us how much this vehicle can go down the road with. We've got an accident report kit. Make sure we have our accident report kit. And we're going to check we have a valid insurance card. Valid insurance card, and it's for this vehicle, and this is the brake serial number. I'm happy with all that paperwork. We're going to try our dome lights, make sure those work. Our dome light up top. Make sure those work. It works. And we're going to try the dome light on the passenger side. And they all work. Checking inside, we can see that our 4-way flashers are working on our dash, our right signal light, our left signal lights, and our high-low beam indicator. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a fan down of the brake system. We're going to release our tractor parking brakes, shoving a yellow button in. We're going to watch our air pressure gauge, and we have some loss. And what we're checking for is for our governor to kick in and start pumping air. It should happen about 20 psi below maximum pressure. As we can see, our needles are starting to rise, so that indicates to me that the governor has cut in and the compressor is starting to build air now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to release our trailer parking brakes also. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fan down. I'm going to fan the brakes, and you notice our air pressure is dropping now. Air pressure is dropping because I'm using air up. As it continues to drop, we have a buzzer comes on. A low air pressure buzzer and a light comes on. That come on around 65, 70 pounds. As we continue to pump the brakes, we're going to wait and our buttons are going to pop, usually between 20 and 45 psi. When the buttons pop, which they did, around 45 psi, that activated our tractor parking brakes and our trailer parking brakes. Now we're going to build our air pressure back up. We're going to time this from 50 to 90, and it has to build in 3 minutes or less. So our air gauge now is at 50 psi, and we're going to start our timer. We're also going to be watching for when our low warning light and buzzer goes out. It should be around 65. And there we are. We're at 90 psi, 1 minute and 18 seconds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the engine idle. To 900 RPM. I'm going to release my trailer parking brakes. My headlights are on. I'm going to put on my high beam headlights and my right signal light. While I'm doing that, I'm just waiting for my governor cutout, which should be around 120 psi. And our governor just cut out at about 125, 130 psi. Now with our high beams on and our right signal on, I'm going to get out and I'm going to check those. I bent down there to check for proper operation on my air tanks. I don't hear any air leaking, and I'm at maximum pressure. I'm going to step back. I can see that my trailer ID lights, they're lit. I have a light here, it's lit. My tractor tail lights are lit, and my right signal light is on. Along here, I got my side marker on my trailer on the bottom. My side marker is all along the top of my trailer. They're all working. I'm going to duck underneath here. I'm going to check for my trailer brake adjustment. I'll go underneath now and I'll check brake adjustment on my rear axle. I'm looking for 1/2 to 3/4 inch of play. And as I come back out, I see that my top marker lights on my trailer are lit, my tail lights are all lit, and my right signal light. Continue down the right side of the trailer. All my top clearance lights are working, my side marker. Right side trailer signal light. Tail lights and right signal again. Side marker here is working, and my top lights are working. Right signal light there. Right signal light there. Both my high beam headlights are working and my top marker lights. Now I'm going to go inside the cab. I'm going to switch over to low beam headlights and my left signal light. Coming up to the front, I can see my low beam headlights, my left signal light,
I'm going to head down the left side of my trailer. Left signal light flashing here. I have a left signal light under my tractor. A left signal light on my trailer. And my left signal on the rear of my trailer. Now I'm going to go into the cab. I'm going to shut off my left signal light. I'm going to turn on my four-way flashers. I'll come back here and check those. As I stand here, I can see my four-way flashers on the right side of my trailer are flashing, on the right side of my tractor, and both front flashers are flashing. Now I'm going to head down my driver's side. The light's flashing here. My four-way flashers are working on my tractor. Four-way flashers working on the side of my trailer. And my four-way flashers are working on the back of my trailer. Now I'm going to pick up my chalk blocks. I'm going to head back in the cab and we'll do a brake check. Okay, so as we enter back into the cab, now we're going to perform a brake check. Our tractor brakes are on. Our trailer brakes were released because we were back there checking our slack adjusters on our trailer. So this is a good opportunity for us to check our tractor parking brakes. I'm going to depress the clutch. We're going to go into second gear. And we're just going to give it, we're not going to give any fuel. We're just going to release the clutch very slowly. And we notice that our tractor parking brakes are holding. Now we're going to put the trailer parking brakes on, release the tractor parking brakes. Now we're going to do a test on our trailer parking brakes. Release the clutch. And our trailer parking brakes are holding. Now we're going to pull down our hand valve. We're going to release our trailer parking brakes, and we're going to test our hand valve, the trailer service brakes. And they're also good and holding. Now what we're going to do is we're going to release our trailer hand valve, and we're going to pull ahead and we're going to make a full brake application of all the brakes. Clutch in, stop. This time I'll turn my ignition off. My brakes are released. I got my full brake application. I'm going to wait, see if I have any loss of air. It's going to be, I'm going to wait for no more than 4 psi in 1 minute, or about the width of a needle. And my minute's up and I haven't lost any air pressure. So now I'll apply my parking brakes. I'll fill out my defect report, and that concludes the pre-trip inspection.